no stop. Bend the clock, spins ting tock. Can they chop? Can hip hop and pop lock? Can beat drops in? Hey, you over there, I know you see me. Is it hot in here or is it chemistry? How's locked in? Baby, take a chance to light it up. Falling in a trance,
Yo, what's good? Welcome back to another episode of the Parental Advisory Podcast. How's everybody feeling today?
Fantastic.
Fantastic?
Blessed.
As always, it's always positivity. I love to hear that. How you feeling up there, Marquita?
I'm pretty good today.
Good. It's so good to see you guys again. I feel like I'm back in church. It's so good to see you guys here back another day. Bless.
Church hug. Go ahead. Get it, Pat. Hug.
I do want to thank everybody for tuning in, and for sure all those folks who have subscribed, the folks that are following, that are liking. We just ask that you continue to like, share. Please spread this invaluable content to the folks out there that could appreciate it. We always want to thank you for the traffic that you guys bring over to our Instagram page. You can find us at the Parental Advisory Podcast on Instagram, as well as the Parental Advisory on YouTube. So how's everybody doing? What's been going on? Something new, something spicy? What's been happening?
We're wearing all black.
Hey, man.
Like the Omen?
Yeah.
We
Got your friends
coordinating.
for my homie?
I like it, man. And you know me.
Yeah. How did that happen? How did we come up with that?
I think black is the color of the streets, actually. So, I mean, it is. It's like the unofficial color of Atlanta nightlife. So,
The black?
you just have to do it. And so,
I
I mean,
think
that's a
black
part
is
of it.
slimming, so everyone wears
It
it.
is. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
But, what I wanted to do today, we're going to talk to you about a topic that is all of us at some point you will face as a parent, and that's when to be a friend versus when to be a parent. Mm-hmm. It's a delicate line to walk, but it's one that we have to, just so you're building credibility with your child, and you also want your child to be open. I mean, with this society we live in now, there's so many things that the kids have access to that can get around us. So, you want to make sure that you're walking that fine line with being a friend versus parent. And what you do want to make sure in those instances is that you don't actually be too submissive, I would say, as a parent. Like, you don't want to be too let them go. But I do wonder, how do you counter that to not be submissive when it comes to, walking that fine line between friend and parent?
I'm going to go with this one because I equate a lot of things in life to sports, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you look at scenarios, you've heard of a player's coach before. Have you heard of that term before, that phrase been used where, say, for example, the coach, he's a leader, he is a listener, he's a firm follower of whatever the mission is, their goals and objectives, but also he's very relatable to the players. And so with that type of mindset, they play hard for that said coach, because they feel like he's kind of one of us and he has our back, right? So I look at that in terms of life scenarios. I've been blessed to be around a lot of great parents. I've had great parents who've really instilled a lot of great traits and things of that nature. And it was always discipline first, education first, hard work, things of that nature. Like, society's not going to care about you. You got to work twice as hard as, other races and other people in situations of that nature, right? So those firm lessons were taught. But at the same time, too, it was some compassion and understanding and guidance that was at a friend level. And I felt like I can, and still can, talk to them about certain subjects, and I won't get disciplined for being inquisitive about a subject. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a good strategy that everyone can take certain, parts of that type of mindset and instill that with their kids, because you want to have an open and honest, transparent relationship with your child, but they're going to hold things back from them. They're going to hide things. They're going to sneak around. They're going to try to find things to not disappoint you and disappoint your expectations. But if it's a process, but I feel like as if you have strong, stern leadership and guidance, but also you're relatable to them and they feel that they can confide in you, I think that's kind of how you can get some of the better results.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There's a fine line. I think what benefits me personally is that I have girls. I think parenting skills would be, or my parenting flow would be different if I had boys. I'm wrapped around Mozzie's finger. So, and he's going to be 4. So I couldn't imagine having 3 of him. But with the girls, I hate to use the word easier because nothing's easy as a parent, but it was a little easier guiding them because I am a woman. I am a girl. So showing them how to be, I remember not too long ago on another episode, I said, I'm showing my daughters how to be a woman and I'm showing my son how to love a woman. Those are 2 different things. So I'm a little bit softer with my son than I am with my daughters. So I don't know how I'm going to be when Mozzie's 14, 15 years old. He'll have sisters that are a lot older that'll probably help me in the process of the girls are coming around and that kind of thing. But I'm a little more lenient on him even now in the house than I was with the girls. I am harder on them, but I also have very transparent conversations that I don't see myself having with my son. I don't know how to be a man. I don't know... I don't know how to do those kind of things. So he, unfortunately, and even fortunately, is going to learn from the outside quite a bit more than my girls will. And I'm comfortable with that because, again, I can't teach a boy how to be a man. I'm a woman. So giving my son, or even giving all my kids, a safe place that they can feel like I'm home. Not where we're living, not the house, not the apartment, not the, property. Mommy's home. I think as long as you have that and you have something to always come back to, cry back to, run back to, as long as I create that safe space, then I'm doing the right thing. Yeah. I think I'm going to, again, have more transparent conversations with my daughters than I would with my son, but that's my line of friend to me is a safety zone. I'm not your friend where you can crack joke. I'm not your friend to a degree of, you talking to your homegirl on the phone, but I'm your friend where...
I'm not one of your friends.
Yeah, I'm
in the
not
street.
with your friends in the street. You know what I'm saying?
Your little friend.
I'm not one of your little friends.
Yeah.
But I'm your mom, meaning I'm going to guide you in this way. I'm going to discipline you in that way. But I'm also your friend where there's safety here. You're safe here where you can talk to me about things that are uncomfortable. And then I'm going to kick in parent mode and guide you in what direction, I'm going to guide you in. So that's my take on it.
Marquita, what would you say, as far as, how do you avoid being too submissive when you're, trying to walk that fine line between being a friend and a parent?
So as everybody was talking, I'm going to be a jerk about this. And I'm going to say
ahead.
that it's not necessarily about being a friend, though, because I think that everything that you all have said that's that's about being like a good parent. So it's like, because I know a lot of parents will fight that, would go like, I don't want to be their friend. But I think what you said, Tiffany, like, you should still be a safe space for them. And so we look at that as a friend, but that could also just be a safe space. That's home. That's your parent, your mom, your dad. And that's what that should be, that you should be able to look at me and say like, okay, yes, I know that there'll be a discipline part, but I know I can also talk to them and they'll give me like good advice. They'll coach me through things. They'll do that, because that's what all encompassing of a parent. It's not necessarily friend or parent. You don't have to choose between the two.
Okay.
I think that.
Yeah. No, that's fair. No, that's fair. I mean, like I said, it's just sometimes it can be challenging just trying to figure it out. Like it's kind of like when we had an earlier episode where we talked about good cop, bad cop. It's like you don't want to be, you're not here to patrol or anything. You're really just here to, be that safe space, as everybody says. What are your thoughts on like helicopter parenting? Like parents that are just over, never heard of helicopter parenting? It's like the overbearing parents that are just over everything that their kid is doing. Just whether it's their extracurricular, they're just like overly involved.
Usually, just from my life experiences, when you have situations that are a little over controlling, overprotective, I would say those are the kind of kids who end up like doing something to a school bad. Like they end up rebelling.
Or going to college and being loosey-goosey.
Yeah, just finding a way to kind of, like, they're finally underneath, like, from outside that like protective covering the net. Kind of, I mean, I'm not saying PKs are like that too, but you kind of see that covering that is there, and you see how people kind of extend out and they want to necessarily be free and find themselves, and that kind of sometimes can be bad. So I don't know. I think it's a true fine line. Every kid and every parent has their own type of structure that they need, and sometimes, in different cities and different environments, you have to be a little bit more protective because those streets are not as safe as it is maybe in some other suburban rural areas. So you have to monitor it. Each situation is different, but those kids, you kind of see them on the news sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and even the kids that let's say suburban kids that don't have much monitoring at all. They coming in and out whenever they want to. They have their own bike. They're going to a friend's house. I'll be back at 10 o'clock. I wish my daughter would tell me I'll be back at 10 o'clock. Are you crazy? I'm sorry, what? Like, the moment the girls ask me if they can do anything or, they have an interest in doing anything, I need to know who's going to be there. I need to know where you're going. I need to know what movie you guys are watching. And that's not because I don't trust you. And I make that a very big point. It's not that I don't trust you, but God forbid something happens, right?
You need to know.
I need to know, where am I going? Who am I coming after? You know what I'm saying? And I would feel like the shittiest parent if the police was in front of me and was like, okay, well, who was she with?
And you have no idea.
I don't know.
No idea.
Well, what movie were we watching? I don't know.
And all the parenting lessons have taught you.
You know what
to
I'm
know
saying?
That, and
so it's like, I it's not because I don't trust you. Mommy just needs to know, because God forbid if anything happens, at least I'm on it immediately.
Yeah.
And social media is so goddamn fast right now that I will be on the scene 2.5 minutes after it happened.
Before ATL scoop.
So that's my biggest thing. But again, suburban parents or suburban communities, I've seen that quite often, where they're not being hovered over at all, and they're given too much space to go do whatever it is that they want to do.
I'm offended. My suburban life. I'm offended in my suburban life.
Okay, let me not say suburban, but even like, for instance, rural areas, like where my mother lives right now, she is the only Hispanic family in the entire town. Literally, there's one Walmart, one bar.
Yeah.
And in those places, there aren't much to do. So what them kids finna do?
Yeah.
Get into some trouble. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows everybody. That's another shit. Everybody knows everybody. Like that, I much rather live in the city where there's experiences, where there's things going on, and I can navigate my kids through that. But when there's nothing to do,
trouble
that's trouble's finna happen, and that's just the truth. Yeah. And that's what I mean by suburban. I mean, like, when you're not being hovered over, or when there's nothing else to do but a field and the neighbor's house next door. Well, there's no activities. There's nothing but each other.
And that's kind of true too as well. And if you ever look up Orangeburg, South Carolina, like per capita, it's like the 6th or 7th now blackest city in America, right, in terms of percentage. But it's technically a small college town, right? It's a black small college town, and you would think there's a lot of activities, but it's nothing to do there now.
Yeah.
Like,
that's scary.
Bowling alleys closed. The movie theaters closed, and so you got a college town, and you have a lot of predominantly African American town where people don't have a lot of things to do. So from a standpoint, you can get into a lot of trouble that is there, and that's a kind of microcosm of cities all across the country, right? Yeah. But when I look at the activities that are there, if you're overbearing parent, you say, sometimes you can help save the kids from themselves, because they don't know any better. They're just out thinking they're having innocent, free fun, and then some stuff happens, and if you're not necessarily aware or don't know where they are, who they're hanging with, what they're doing, then that's kind of the fault of the parent, right? And so, yes, I don't know where the line is drawn, but it is a fine line. But you can't be too free to say, "Oh, I trust them. That's my baby. She's not going to do anything." Next thing you know, you're getting a call from police station because they're doing something crazy or something else. So, yes, say the habitual line is wherever you think it should be. All right.
Yeah.
And to even go with that part of what you guys are saying, so how I do it is that's kind of like, my kid, she'll go outside with her friends and stuff like that. I have an app, so I track every move that she makes. It's kind of stalkerish, but it works.
No, I have an app.
But even that, so like, but my parenting is that, yes, I want to know who you're with, where you're going, all of these things. And then I guess we'll say friend, because I don't have a better term for it, or the coach in me is like, okay, I want to know these things, and I know that you're not going to always tell me the truth. So you need to make sure that somebody knows where you really are. And so that's something I've always said to her. Somebody told that to me when I was a teenager, that if you're going to lie to your parent, you need to call somebody and tell them where you really are, so that if something go down, somebody knows what the truth is. Yeah. And if you tell me you're supposed to be skating and you really, on the whole other side of town, I need to be able to know. I need to be able to say, like, no, this is where she really is. This is who she's really with. And
I'm just going to say, I'm glad we don't have all these apps and ring cameras and things like that when I was coming up, because now you can't get away with anything. Like I'm grateful for it, but dude, Mama, I know you listening out there, but if we had a Ring camera, I don't know if I would still be standing right now, because if she saw those,
Knock your bottom teeth out.
hey, she'd have seen that roof jump
I
and been
was
like,
gonna
"Oh,
say,
you thought you was
man. Yeah.
And that's a benefit that we have now, you know, with the tracking
Yeah.
systems
For sure.
and the Life 360s.
But
and
there's
all
still
these
a way.
cool things. It's all a way. I mean, I've
There's still
seen
a way.
situations where the kid leaves the phone at a house someplace else, and then they went
Don't
someplace.
say that. Don't say
Bro,
that.
you
Don't
can
say
go
that.
to
My baby
CVS
might
and go
watch
get a
this.
burner phone right now.
My baby
But-
might watch this.
but
I
this
don't
is
want
good.
to
You
Now
know
you
what I'm
need to-
saying? Like,
Exactly.
No.
No ideas, but this is
Stop.
something.
Y'all giving her ideas.
Okay.
Stop.
All right.
Stop. Don't get kids ideas.
Right.
No, but I get you. And I make jokes like that sometimes. I'm like, well, her phone is at the park. I don't know if that's where she really is, but her phone is there. But yeah. But with the Life 360 app and with apps like that, do you have trouble with letting her? I try to let her get away with like small things. Like, yes, you said you were going to the park, but you didn't tell me you were going to walk to the store first.
Yes,
so I don't say
do.
anything. I don't say anything about that.
But I
even though
mention it
bothers
later.
me.
I mention it later.
Even though it bothers
Yeah.
me, like, oh, so you went to the store, but you didn't tell me that part. But I try not to let that be a big issue, because I am like watching it like a hawk. Like, why are you here?
So
That's
am
not
I.
where you said you were going.
So am I. And and you made a good point when you were saying someone needs to know where you're at. I love that. I really do. I don't think I've had to give that speech, because 1 out of 3 gonna tell me. You know, so I've given birth to the snitch sister. I've given birth to the friend. I've given birth. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's rare that they want all 3 of them go do something together. I often make them do something together, because the third one that doesn't is going to make sure that they get home on time. Is going to make sure that things are going the right way. You know what I'm saying? So I think in the beginning it was tough for me to have all 3 of them together, but now it's like a super, 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 super plus for me. Do bring up those small things where my daughter be at the park playing basketball, and then I see her trotting over to the bodega, and it's like, okay, well, she didn't tell me that part. You know what I'm saying? But I'll bring it up later. I won't bark on her right then and there, but I will bring it up later. And I might do something. I might even lie about it, if I'm being honest with you. I'll be like, did you guys hear about that they was shooting up the street? Or did you see police, going down the block at all? They were like, no, Mom, why? It's like, well, there was some guy was walking around with some. She's like, for real? Yeah, that's why you should tell me that you went to the bodega. So that I know. They're like, oh, Mom, you're right. So,
see, y'all, yours is so much more intense. Mine is like, did you wash your hands or not? You know, like, I catch you up there. Like, I didn't hear any water running. You know, did you wash your hands? Like, but no, that's serious. Like, I mean, I don't have to play friend in that. I'm parent in that moment. But, you know, as it heightens, I mean, it gets more intense, and you have to be able to give them a little bit of freedom, but also make sure that you're not necessarily being a helicopter and hovering over them, but give them just enough that they can feel some independence.
Yeah, we have a park really close to our place. I mean, literally around the corner that all of my daughters go a lot. It does not, if you are, how can I, and I hate to think this way, but I have to as a girl, and even as a boy mom. But anyways, as a teenage mom, a woman that has teenage girls, and 3 of them, it doesn't take much for someone to see that these are 3 girls with a dog. They often walk the dog at the park. Yeah. They come here a lot. They must live in a neighborhood. Maybe they might get followed home one day. Maybe they, you know what I'm saying? I think like that. So I make sure my girls watch your surroundings.
It's true.
Go around this way when you come home. Go around the other block when you come home. I do that often with them. And I'm sure they think I'm a Looney Tune. But I also make them sit down and watch First 48 and like CSI shows and like that kind of thing. So they kind of get it. Yeah. But I'm very big on that. So yes, where I'm giving them independence, I'm still kind of, hey, make sure you're watching your surroundings. Don't accept nothing when you go to the bodega. You want money, you come back home, you get you get it yourself. Correct. And I purposely, in the beginning when we first got our dog, I was just walking him. And then it was like, no, I need, because around here to see it, they got a dog. You know, so attempt to approach my girls if you want to with the dog. Then don't play about us at all. So I've been big on allowing them to walk the dog even alone. Just one of them and the dog. Yeah. Just so that if anyone is watching, you know, there's a dog or, you know, there's multiple. But I often think about that. Like, it doesn't take much for someone to just peep game on, okay, these girls are here a lot. Oh, these girls are walking in this direction. Oh, these girls are walking to this house. Or, you know what I'm saying? So just making them very aware.
And that's really a good point, too, as well, because, it's a lot of creepers out here. I mean, y'all know about Atlanta and its history of, like, sex trafficking.
Sex trafficking, yes, huge.
All these crazy, you know, scenarios and the gangs run around town and things of that nature, right? That's part of the society here. But, you know, when is it too early, or is it a good idea to say, for example, to have your daughter to have mace or some type of like that little claw puncture thing or some type of protection per se, because you're talking about scenarios where they're in a park or they're going from a neighbor's house or they're walking, and it may not be night, it may be getting a little darker, things of that nature. Like, how do you feel about having them protect themselves or learning self-defense or learning how to fight off things, like intruder or some creep or something of that nature?
I mean, as young as possible. Like, no joke. I always looked at myself and my ex and said, man, I'm gonna have a little tiny baby, so she'll need to learn jujitsu or something to defend herself. Like, no lie. But we did get her in karate lessons, and I mean, starting young, just self-defense, and they teach them, kind of how to push off. I mean, obviously you're young, so your strength is not there, but I mean, I don't think that there's
not being intimidated by
not being
situation.
intimidated, and as far as having a protection item, I mean, mace. I mean, I can't let my little 5-year-old at this point walk around with mace, but I mean, definitely as she becomes more and more independent and is doing things where maybe she's going to practice without me. Obviously, I'm picking her up and dropping her off, but there may be a period if she's doing cheer or something where I may leave and come back. It's just like, it just doesn't, I don't think there's an age. And what would you say, Marquita, as far as when you should start having conversations about, protecting yourself and self-defense?
Protecting yourself is always a conversation to be had from, just tell, this is your personal space. No one should come into it unless you give them permission to. If someone does, you can tell them no. You can, push them away. You can do, like, that's something that should always be taught, like, regardless of the age. Now, as far as like carrying a weapon with you, that's, of course, as they get older, so where they can have responsibility with it. My daughter wants a mace. I don't know. She's a hothead sometimes, so I don't want her to use it. If we have other issues coming up with that, but I would be okay with it. But I think that getting him into those self-defense classes and stuff like that is always good for more than just defense. I mean, those type of classes teach discipline. And patience and all sorts of things. So yeah.
Has anybody faced times when they have to balance being too controlling? Like, I'm sure, Tiff, for you, balancing out, multiple kids, you have to be, sometimes a little more stern. But as far as me, I try not to be controlling, if you will. I try to guide in the right thing. But have you guys faced times when you had to balance that out?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. For instance, my oldest daughter has a boyfriend, super respectful, love the kid. His mom and I get along very well as well. And he's on FaceTime all day long. All day. I gotta be like, all right, good night, Carlos. Good night. We love you. Good night. Where I'm giving her freedom. Talk to, and that's all they do is talk. They don't hang out. He's all the way in some other state right now with his grandmother. So, by all means. But okay, now it's a certain time. Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? So it's controlling in a way, because it's like, now I'm controlling how much they're talking. But they've been talking for 12 hours. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Had it been me at that age back then, it's like, Mom, I'm paying for the minute.
Right.
I
was just thinking.
Now it's like, it's unlimited. So it's like, he's constant. I mean, she can be doing dishes and he's just on the table.
Just sitting there.
Doing nothing. They're not FaceTiming at all. He's just there. And that's as present as he can be. And it's puppy love, and I get it. And it's awesome. Good for you. It makes my daughter feel good about herself. Again, he's super respectful. But at a certain time, and that's a battle. Not a battle where I'm struggling, but it's like, okay, I let you have your time. Now it's time to, mommy got to kick in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's, that kind of thing. So
when she breaks up with him, he's going to be so sad. I'm sorry.
He's going to be hurt. Yeah, mine is more like screen time, like with the iPad and stuff like that, like having to balance that out, because having, a 5-year-old, that's what she wants to do. And it's funny because you have to watch, like, you have to make sure it's kids YouTube if that's what you're doing, because of regular, some of that stuff I've been hearing lately, I'm like, yo, you can't be on there anymore. Like, this is completely like out of order. Yeah. So I have that balance out. What about you, Marquita?
Screen time for the youngest one, because she does watch regular YouTube, because it's something she started watching regular YouTube because one of the shows she wanted to watch wasn't on kids' YouTube. It's on there now, I believe. But she watches bizarre things. I don't get it. But with my oldest, I think it's about her going places and doing things, trying to balance how I let that go. Like, I want to, like, nope, you can't do this. That my initial response is typically no, like in my brain is no, but then I have to like talk myself into like letting her do certain things. I'm like, okay, let's be realistic. Like, that's a normal teenage thing to want to do, is to go hang out with your friends, not necessarily doing anything, because that's me. Like, what are you guys going to be doing? What,
Right.
like nothing.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I get it. Like trying to recall when I was a teen and say like, okay, yes, it is common to go somewhere and do nothing.
Yeah. Same. I wasn't allowed to do anything. Literally, I was told no at every given chance.
I was able to do a lot.
Your boy. He's the only boy. That's what I'm saying. Like, my parenting would probably be a hell of a lot different if Mozzie came out first, for sure. But I wasn't allowed to do anything. Like, everything was no.
Wow.
Everything was no. So when I was allowed to go to one girl's house, I remember sleepovers? No, definitely not. But we did one sleepover. I remember my mom drove me for an hour, and she lectured me the whole way, like, Tiffany, you better not. I don't know why you want to come out here all the way in the boondocks, but I'm just letting you know there better be no shit. Like, and I'm like, yeah. And I legit was doing nothing. I swear on everything I love. The very next day, I woke up in a police precinct and I was calling my mom.
What?
Well, I was actually calling my dad.
What?
So I showed up to the girl's house, and we were in high school. Showed up to the girl's house, and her mom left. I didn't know. Okay. So she was like, oh, we're going to go to this house party. And I'm like, when I say boonies, like, we were in the boonies.
Sticks.
So it's like, I'm a city girl. Not like those city girls, but I'm a city girl. So it's like, what can we get in trouble with in the boonies? Man, there was so much beer, and it was a pool there, and it was like, it was mayhem. So I apparently got drunk over Budweiser or some stupidness, and I laid my behind in the
King
back.
Welcome to the party.
And that was the first time I had ever drank anything in life. So I laid in the back of the car that we drove in, and I passed out. I woke up in the police precinct. I remember putting my head up, and I looked around. I like put my head back down. I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna kill me."
Y'all got pulled over or something?
So her boyfriend was driving, and he was drunk, and damn near drove us into a ditch, and we got pulled over. I was actually not allowed in the state of Pennsylvania for whatever the reason. I was actually not allowed to get my driver's license.
Oh,
my driver's license was suspended because I was in the back seat and I was underage intoxication. Yes.
I went to one little party.
Yeah.
My mom got scared.
Right.
Yeah, right. Really,
What?
literally. So yes, that happened to me. And what's crazy is that, so my stepdad, I call him my stepdad, but my stepdad, he convinced my mom, he's like, let her be a teenager. Let her go to her friend's house. She got to experience life. And my mom, of course, was going back and forth. Finally, he convinced her to do it. And that was actually the first time my dad was ever mad at me. He was never, I never made him upset. He didn't talk to me for 2 days. When I say I was devastated.
Let him down.
I was devastated because I called him and I didn't want to call him. I was like, take me to jail, man. I don't care what y'all do with people my age, but I'd rather be here than there. Like, oh my, it hasn't even been 12 hours.
Right. They don't give you that boonie,
Oh my God. I'm never going to leave my mom's never going to let me leave out the house. But that goes to show you, if I knew better, I'd be like, nah, like, we're not doing that. My mom trusts me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I wasn't allowed to do anything. So it was like, house party, let's go. You know what I'm saying? And the first beer I was handed, I was, you know what I'm saying? I'm taking it back because I wasn't experiencing that shit. I wasn't seeing it. Not saying that you need to be drinking at that age, but I wasn't allowed to do anything. So I was taking my first bite of whatever it is that I was given, you know?
The life, man.
Yeah, the life.
You went
I went for
city
it.
girl.
I went way too hard. But I remember my dad driving me home, and when I say silence, I'd much rather my mom to be yelling at me in my ear, but my dad, he was silent.
Oh, he was so
I would
hurt.
walk by him, and he would just walk right by. I mean, like, I was invisible for 2 days, and that affected me more. I remember that at 34 years old, more than any lecture my mom has ever given me in my entire life growing up. But that affected me so much. He was just silent. Like,
The silence is the worst.
It's
That's
the
when
worst.
you know, like, they're fuming.
Because he
like,
put it on
when
the
it's
line for you.
I never disappointed him. I disappointed him. But and again, because he went to bats for me. So yes, that's when you're a little more lenient, when you're a little more, I feel like hopefully my kids know, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Because my mama lets me do X, Y, and Z. Why would I even, jeopardize that for this a little bit of fun?
Right.
So,
I always equate everything back to what I did, right? And, stern, situation. I had a curfew. I remember I was a junior in high school, and I had a curfew at 11 o'clock. And I thought that was it was okay, but it was a little early because some of my other friends, they didn't have to be back until midnight. And then remember Dad always was saying,
hour.
right? That's a big difference at a party.
Dude.
At a party, you gotta leave before the party.
Midnight.
Oh, come on, man. Like, but like from a standpoint, I didn't understand it until I got a little older, and it all made sense because the situations, especially growing up, at that point in time, anything that happens after midnight was kind of usually negative, right? And it was something where trouble happened or situations occurred. And I kind of want to have that same mindset as well because it worked. And yeah, it was a little bit more stuff for us to get into at that age. And it was a lot of activity. We didn't have the tracking. We didn't have all that stuff. Instagram, social media. We didn't have all that type of stuff. You kind of just figured it out. You found out about it and you just pulled up.
Yeah.
And somebody sent you a page or you call somebody and like, we were at this house party. You just pull, just stuff happened, right?
Yeah.
But, just kind of looking at those situations, you don't want your kid to let you down like that, right? Especially if you want to give them a little bit of freedom. Like, God, they're a good kid. They deserve this. Like, they follow the rules. Their grades are great. And, like, I don't want to be so much of a nuisance, a helicopter parent.
Yeah.
Next morning, you got to get them out of jail. Like, so that's a disappointing scenario. So, understand.
Yeah.
Awful.
So, lastly, I guess, would you guys say, and I know we kind of had some discussion back and forth, when is the best time to pick, I guess, when to be the friend versus with the parent? I mean, I know through conversation. Never be the friend, always be the parent.
It depends on the scenario, I guess, on the situation. Exactly. Yeah. And the age. I'm having different conversations than you're having with Zoe.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm having different conversations with my girls. So if they're coming to me, and it may not be a question, it could just be in conversation, and then a boy gets brought up. I'm not gonna be, well, you better not, and you better not, and you better not. That's gonna be friend mom, where I'll just be giving advice, or the situation that, growing up, my mom held me on tight. So the very first house party I was at, I was drunk in a police precinct the very next day. You know what I'm saying? So those type of things where I'm human.
Right.
I'm human. I made mistakes as well. But I think it just depends on the situation, on whatever the topic is, or whatever it is that's happening in that moment. But you're always going to be a parent. Yeah. Always.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's when to bring the friend in.
And that's true. I mean, you have to remember, as it says, parent first, friend second.
That's very true.
So, you always want to be that parent. You want to make sure that boundary is set and that open communication is there and all of that. But you want to have them feel comfortable with you as the conversations progress. You want that to be that safe zone for sure.
Yeah. And one last thing too about this, we're talking about friends. Like, I maybe curse in front of my friends. I still don't curse in front of my parents.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just like a different thing. We have great conversation now about life and finance and, legacy and situations and travel and things of that nature, right? So the conversation has evolved. I think it probably got best once I got left and went off to college.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like you're like young adult at that point in time. You can have those experiences. But like until that 18 point hits, like they're your responsibility to make sure they make it off the nest, per se.
Yeah.
And then after that, I feel like it kind of transitions to a different relationship.
Agreed.
No, that's fair. Good conversation. Good stuff there. Anybody got any closing comments, not cross-examination and closing overruled objections? Anything, Marquita?
No, I think you have said it. I mean, always a parent. I think there's time you step in, you become their coach, though. You're their coach with friendships, with relationships, with school, interaction, everything. You become their coach.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Well, hey, thanks so much, really for tuning in. Like I said, with this topic, being a friend, being a parent, it kind of, they go hand in hand to an extent, but you want to make sure that you're, of course, following that line and make sure the open lines of communication are there. But thanks for always, all your support. Thanks for everybody for listening, for viewing. Be sure to subscribe onto our YouTube channel at the Parental Advisory Podcast. Please like, share, smash the subscribe button, and also follow us on Instagram at the Parental Advisory Podcast. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we will be sure to check you guys out next week. Peace.
Peace.